Welcome to Northernlights. I'm Dwain.
I'm Mark.
And today we're going to do our recap of UFC London. It was quite an eventful card tonight. There was a lot of surprises. We'll get into that when we get into the main event. But overall, I had a good night. I really enjoyed it. Did you enjoy yourself, Mark?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, obviously it's a little different. You probably feel it more of a treat back home in England because, it's just a Saturday night for you, isn't it? But I mean, over here, it's, I got up at 6:30, which isn't, the worst thing in the world. About half an hour before I usually get up anyway. But yeah, quite enjoyed it. It was a good card. I watched the main card. I know you watched a little bit of the prelims, but I mean, to get right into it, Paul Craig opened up the main card. What did you think of this performance?
Yeah, well, so with Paul Craig, I was hoping for a lot more from him. I think he's had a hell of a run and he's really shown, that he's got some fantastic submissions. And I was shocked. So Paul Craig came out very, very strong in the first round. And then the second and third, he kind of wavered. But the issue is he's only got one trick up his sleeve, hasn't he? I'm going to take you down. I'm going to submit you. And so unfortunately, he got the loss due to decision. But I felt like the judges perhaps were looking at this slightly too wrong. I mean, to give Ozdemir all 3 rounds is very shocking to me because Paul Craig, for me, won that first round. Winning on the feet. He had multiple submission attempts. That, for me, won that first round. But, it is what it is, isn't it?
Definitely. I definitely thought he'd won the first. But it's just more apparent, like, we've seen it before. Like, do you remember Ryan Hall? He used to do it as well, where, that's all he's looking for is to be taken down. And you're like, you've given away exactly what you want. You've got to be a threat on the ground, on the feet, everything. I'm not saying Paul, he can't strike as well because he can, but it's just so obvious that's all he wants. How many times did he roll on the floor, or he'd get cracked in the face? It looked like he got dropped, but it didn't. He just drops down to the floor purposefully to try and grip hold of him. Yeah. Maybe he did that a little too much instead of trying to engage a little bit more on the feet or something. But I think Ozdemir, he won the fight, but it wasn't. It shouldn't have been all 3 rounds to him. I don't think. At least Paul got the first one. But the thing is, though, I don't think this damages Paul too much because he hasn't really stepped up in competition since his last fight, has he? Like we were saying in the predictions. So he doesn't really lose much, I don't think.
No, definitely not, especially to Ozdemir, because Ozdemir has only lost to really big names, like Dominic Reyes, DC, Anthony Smith, I think, as well. So, they're people you're kind of supposed to lose to. So there's no shame in Paul Craig getting a loss here. And you're right, he's not going to go up and down in the rankings. He'll probably stay where he is, and he'll just get to fight someone else who's ranked 8th or 7th, somewhere in that.
Yeah,
in the same position. But then we go into Molly McCann versus Hannah Goldie, which I was a bit worried for Molly McCann when she first came out in the first round because I didn't realize how big Hannah Goldie is. She is massive. Her arms are huge, just slightly bigger than yours, Mark, only just. And I thought, oh no, poor Molly, she's getting cracked a little bit and she's getting pushed up against the fence. And then out of nowhere, Molly does her finishing move, the spinning back elbow, and drops her and then pummels her in with punches, and wins by knockout in the first round.
It was a nice surprise, especially in the first round as well, to get it. Because when she went for the spinning back elbow, you're like, again? And then she had to finish it off a little bit. As soon as Hannah dropped, you're like, yeah, that's it, it's done. Yeah. But obviously, when we was live streaming, you was a little bit ahead of me, and you was like, you didn't want to ruin it for me. You were, where are you at again, Mark?
So I was like, oh my god, where are you, Mark? You just don't want to ruin it for somebody, but it's just, it is what it is. I'm excited now for where Molly McCann's going to go because she's obviously got finishing power now. She's knocked out 2 people in a row, which is very rare for women's divisions for these big knockouts. So I'd really like to see her take a big step up in competition. Maybe, in fact, is it Joanna? Is that her name? That Scottish girl? I don't remember her surname.
Joanna
And then we go into Nikita Krylov versus Alexander Gustafsson. Gustafsson? Who knows? Who knows what his surname is?
Don't you start butchering the name as well as me. Don't you start it as well.
But I don't think we'll be saying the name for much longer because I think the writing on the wall is there for Alex now. I think it's probably time for him to step down because he came out and Krylov put it on him straight away, dropped him within the first 10 seconds. Alexander got back up, but it was the end almost straight away. What was it, 30, 40 seconds? I don't know. It was an incredibly quick fight.
You know that people have primes and that kind of stuff, but it's hard to believe that that's the person who took John Jones almost to his limit. And he had great fights, with DC and all that kind of stuff. It's hard to believe because that's what's in your memory as soon as you see his name. Gus is going to fight. You think, oh, this is what the kind of Gus that we're going to get, and he just seemed to have nothing for him at all because it ended in. Was it just over a minute? Something
like that. Is very, very short.
Just over, and it's a shame. It is what it is. He's no spring chicken, though, is he? And obviously, if he's been out of the octagon for that long, this is a real thing, maybe. But it would just seem like it didn't. They looked, complete divisions apart.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. And like I say it a lot, but it's when you come off losses as a fighter, it makes you desperate and you put yourself in risky positions, and then you get rocked, and it's what happened, unfortunately. And it's a real shame because Alexander's, he's a great fighter, a very, very popular fighter from Sweden, and everyone seems to like him. He's a real fan favorite, but it feels like this is probably the end of the road for him now. Unless maybe he goes off, maybe he fights Paul Craig next. That might be a good one to put on. Put two losers against each other. Two people coming off a loss. Two losers.
Yeah, give it third time lucky for this fight as well. Because that'd be a fight that I'm really interested in seeing.
It would be really good. It would be
a dream fight with Anthony Smith, but that might not be happening now. You never know.
Well, it could do. Fingers crossed. Because there's still hope for me for Paul Craig anyway. But anyway, we don't want to keep banging on about Paul Craig. We're back onto British fighters. We've got Paddy Pimlet versus Jordan Leavitt. I was surprised how strong Jordan Leavitt came out in that first round. Like, not just in technique, but physically. When he picked up Paddy and slammed him down on the ground, he kept him clinched up against the fence, and he had a lot of control time. But Paddy did seem, for me, to be causing a lot of damage and seemed happy to be up against the fence. I mean, he kept, constantly kept up with that sort of submission offense. But it ended in the second round with Paddy taking down Jordan Leavitt with a brutal knee while he was in a clinch, and then got his back and choked him out in a very dominant fashion. What did you think of the fight overall, Mark?
Yeah, it was very, very grapple heavy, wasn't it? I mean, you kind of expect that as well, but you expected it to be more offensive. Paddy, obviously, it doesn't make a difference now because he won, but he got the finish. Jordan, put up more of a fight than what I actually thought he was going to do. Paddy, he always says, doesn't he, I'm disappointed with my performance. But I suppose that's what you've got to do as well, though. He's always strive for more. You'd never do a fight and then just go, oh, that's it, I've done my best. Yeah. But on a side note, straight after we'd finished as well, I went back and watched the interview. I was glad of what he was saying. I'm not glad, obviously, but it's nice that he was bringing light to, men not speaking up, just go and speak up. So I think that's nothing to do with, a recap or anything like that. I was just glad that he's using his podium for that kind of stuff, to prevent, mental health.
Yeah, it's great that fighters, use position like that to promote that kind of thing because, it is a serious topic. There's a lot of men who really struggle with these kind of things. And it's nice that he's done something for that. But I am sort of interested now, where does Paddy go next? Because I'd really like to see him move further up that card. And like you said before, he struggled in this fight a bit and he struggled in his last two fights. But it's a real step in competition. He's come from Cage Warriors, which is, of course, a very competitive organization, but it's not at UFC level. So now you fight. he's got to adjust to that, and hopefully he's going to strive and get better and better and better. Because I know a lot of people want to see him get humbled, but I'd actually like to see him go to the top. But
I think it's possible to get humbled without being finished in a devastating fashion or something. Like say if we got this version of Paddy tonight against Michael Chandler or someone like that, he could, and say if Paddy won, he would still be humbled, as in the sense of I've got to strive for more. Like it happens a few times. Look at a completely different weight division, but look at Hamza and Gilbert Burns after. It's like, I've got to train harder. I've really got to train harder because, this guy's tough. That's what's going to happen, with Paddy, surely.
Yeah.
But when he steps up in competition, but surely that's the only way for him to go now as well. Because you can't just have him sort of toying around this middle ground of unranked fighters, like he's going to have to just go up.
Yeah, he definitely will. I think he'll do the Sean O'Malley approach and just fight unranked fighters until he's next contract's up, because I think that's probably a smart way to do it when you're getting paid more money, take the big fights and get yourself sort of acclimatized, I guess, to this sort of organization. But anyway, we then follow up with a co-main event with Jack Hermansson versus Chris Curtis, should I say. And it was a shame that Darren Till wasn't in this fight tonight, because I was really looking forward to seeing him come back. It's difficult because I don't know where Darren Till's going to be now. Is he going to come back? But again, this is a conversation for another time. But yeah, Chris Curtis came out and he just got dominated, really, didn't he? Jack Hermansson was just controlling him on the feet, keeping great range. He had the threat of the takedown. And Chris Curtis, unfortunately, just looked tired the whole time. And he just, and he lost via decision. What did you think of the fight overall, Mark?
Well, obviously, like you just touched on then, I would have been a lot more invested if Darren Till was involved in it. But, so I was going into this, a little like, it's probably going to be a little bit of a dud. And it wasn't necessarily a dud. I wouldn't think that's fair to say, but it wasn't the best, the most exciting fight that you've ever seen. But Jack did enough to win.
Yeah,
that's essentially, it kept him at range with the jabs, with his kicks. He was chopping away at his legs. So I think, and then in the last round, the last minute of the fight, he'd done this like, sort of slyly throughout it, but in the last minute especially, he just kept sidestepping all the way, just avoiding him. And then obviously we got the finger salute from Chris Curtis to him afterwards. And he was saying, and there was something said, wasn't there?
Yes.
And I'd have to go back, that Jack Hermansson had said something and then he'd apologized for it in his post-fight interview.
Yeah, so I don't know what it is, and I don't even want to speculate, but I can't imagine it was just like F off or anything like that. It seems it was something a little bit more personal, and it seemed to really upset Chris Curtis. But it's the fight game, and unfortunately that kind of thing happens. But I'm excited for both of them, and I think there's some real room for them in that middleweight division, and I'd like to see them both move up, because Chris Curtis took this on last minute notice. If he was in better physical condition, maybe he'd have done even better. Maybe he could have got a win because he's very aggressive and very strong. But talking of duds of fights, unfortunately, we're going to the main event with Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blades, which ended within 15 seconds because Tom Aspinall, actually, I've looked at some pictures afterwards, Mark, and it seems his kneecap has turned the whole way. So his kneecap has rotated all the way around to the right side of his leg. We don't know fully what caused it, but it seemed that he did. There was a leg strike. He did a sort of like a calf kick, but he hit the thigh, but his knee didn't seem to make any contact, and it was just the way he came down. He just blew his knee out.
It's not necessarily just like the impact on knee sort of thing. Fortunately, I've never had anything happen to my knees, but I've got friends. My friend actually messaged me that I didn't see until after, and he just said, because he's had knee surgery and stuff, he says anything can just make it blow out or blow up, whatever it is, sort of thing. But it's disappointing. But first and foremost, you're just hoping that everything's going to be all right, that he's going to be well, recover quick, and then he can come back. And I don't know how long these things take, and you never do know, do you, the severity of the situation. But that's first and foremost. And then, but I mean, obviously, secondary is you're just like, really looking forward to this main event. But these things happen. Look at last week with Brian Ortega's shoulder.
Yeah.
These things do happen, and it's part and parcel of the game, sadly.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. The trouble is, I think we were all excited for Aspinall, and Aspinall was excited as well because it felt like he was making real waves in this heavyweight division. And I genuinely, because I said to you, I said, if he wins this fight tonight, he's probably going to get an interim fight with whoever wins Ty versus Garn, which would have been perfect. And now, unfortunately, we don't know what his injury is just yet, but we'll probably find out tomorrow. And we'll see how long it takes for that to heal. It's probably going to be a year at least, which is a shame, but hopefully he can come back in that year. And sort of all this confusion of the heavyweight division will be out the window. We'll know where Ngannou is, whether John Jones is back. We don't know what the landscape of that division is going to be, but all I want is Aspinall to be at the top of it. That's what I'm really hoping for. I thought it was really good of Curtis Blades not to jump on Aspinall and start whacking him when he was down. He saw he was injured and he stopped and just let it ride out. But I do think that's all we've got time for. Thank you everyone for listening. If you can like, comment, subscribe, it really does help us out.